of us want. And I especially think the kitchen should be a commercial kitchen. I also actually tend to agree with one of your selectmen that I think we should have built new. Having said that, I know you're volunteers. I'm not willing to head the project, but I think this is not a great thing. That's the negative. The positive, I am so pleased that you guys are bringing this back to a more complete town meeting where a lot of us can talk about what in the heck is going on with this. And hopefully we will have a downturn in the economy. But if not, I hope you subsidize this project with a heck of a lot of free cash. That's it from me. You're fiscal conservative, but I appreciate everything you're doing because I know it's a lot of work. That's it.
Thank you. I think Luciano Birdie had their hand up, his hand up.
Yeah, I think Bob had it first.
Okay.
Bob, you had it first, yeah.
Mr. Springett.
You need to introduce the committee.
Oh, thank you. I forgot. Thank you, Bob.
Sorry.
So I guess I will have to take a roll call here. So I am Robin Hunter, chair of the Board of Selectmen. Clearly failed my duties this evening. So I'm going to have to make myself a checklist going forward. Mr. Jeffries, can you?
John Jeffries, present.
And Mr. Springett?
Bob Springett, President. Chris, can you arrange some remedial training for our chair, please?
This is what happens when you haven't been on vacation for 3 years and you're going on vacation tomorrow.
There's that.
So Luciano, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, apologies not showing myself in camera. I just wanted to...
Can you please just introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, sure, no problem. Part of the community, the Carroll School Community Committee and resident in Dover for Riverview Terrace. Thank you. So is that enough for introduction? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I just want to make one and I hear, Justin, what you're talking about. We can have a lot of conversation about what we want to build, what we don't want to build. I just want to make sure that, that there is an understanding that delaying. So just today, I received a report that says the glass price jumped 40%, and we had a project. Current project has nothing to do with the community building, but still we had 31% increase of our on our cost of steel for a larger project. So unless there is a downturn on economy, which from a public procurement perspective could be seen as a positive, usually costs go down, but from a world and a large, it's having an economic turn down is never good news for many people. My fear is that delaying, we had a couple of meetings in the community, in the committee meeting. The first one, we had some question, then 3 days later, we met again, we answered the question, we were able to get to something that we all agreed was a good cost. What my fear is that we are postponing the decision, which is okay. It's up to all of you to make this decision, but postponing the decision is going to incur in additional costs. It's not like putting on hold on something. In design and construction, there is not hold. We have to rebid, and once you rebid, there is additional cost for many reasons. One is the bidder already know what the cost was, so everybody can play around with known cost. So nothing is going to become lower than what was proposed. And two, the bidding process is good. We have to, we cannot ask a contractor to hold their bids. Doesn't work in public bidding.
Right, so Luciana, we discussed all of this at the
Okay,
last
yeah.
meeting.
Right.
So do you have another comment to make? We will be
No,
talking
just,
about
no,
the
that's
community
it.
center later, and all the points that you're bringing up right now.
Oh, great. I was not there. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, so we will move to Kate, did you get any comments that we should read via email?
I did not.
Okay, thank you. You have to keep me honest here. So the first item of business is 1.1, and that's to review and approve the amended power purchase agreement between Select Energy Development and the town of Dover. And our town administrator is going to present this to us. This relates to the solar project at the highway that seems to have taken on a life of its own.
It's certainly the project that continues on. So thanks, Robin. With us this evening is Beth Greenblatt, the town's solar consultant, who's been vital in making this project a reality and helping us work through the certain nuances of implementing a roof array project in town, but also when legislative changes actually require us to revisit the agreement that had been voted on and agreed by the board a few months ago. So I won't get into too much detail on it, but I'll let Beth kind of explain what has happened since the board approved the initial PPA and lease agreement, what the implications of that change are, any differences to the agreement, and then we'll seek the board's approval once again for the overall project and the amendment that Beth will be presenting here this evening. So Beth, if you wouldn't mind taking over.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Good evening, folks. Always a pleasure seeing you all again. I think since the last time we met, I don't want to suggest we got some clarity, but we got some direction from the Department of Revenue as to their interpretation of the automatic eligible exemption from personal property taxation for a project such as that being contemplated on the roof for the highway department. Sort of the common understanding by practitioners in the industry and quite frankly town councils in our collective review of the new law, we anticipated that the personal property owned by Select Energy would fall under the exemption category. We determined and calculated a pilot payment for the real property that would be subject to taxation. Since that time, since last fall, we learned from the Department of Revenue after town council went back for clarification on what we think is a pretty obvious conclusion, but not so to the Department of Revenue. They advised us that the asset was not, in fact, eligible for the exemption. Not to say it won't be considered in the future, but at this point, they indicated that the asset itself would be taxable. And so we needed to go back and not only revisit the pilot, but also the implications that a changing pilot would have on the power purchase rate. The good news is, I'm going to skip to the end and then tell you how we got there, but the good news is the project economics improved, which is terrific. And from a personal property perspective, I worked with Amy, who worked really long and hard, Amy Gao, your assessor, to determine a valuation for the personal property, apply the now current tax rate, and allow for 2.5% annual escalation built into the calculation to conclude with a fixed pilot payment for over the next 20 years. So every year, the town will get a fixed amount that was determined while including a 2.5% annual escalator into the calculation for the pilot, compounded. So we allowed for those annual increases. Amy felt very comfortable with the methodology that quite frankly, my firm has deployed for a host of pilots across the Commonwealth, and none of them have been rejected by the Department of Revenue. I don't think they approve pilots, but they are very quick to reject them if they're not happy with the methodology. methodology is defensible and sustainable to use for any other project you have in the town. We, as I mentioned, calculated a fixed rate for the pilot, which is not a significant amount of money, but it's a little over $2,700 a year for 20 years. The real property tax, which is the underlying real property that the modules are actually sitting on, so the area of the roof that the modules are sitting on, that is taxable. Even though the real property itself is owned by a tax-exempt entity, the town, because the property is now being used for commercial purposes, under Mass General laws, that portion of the property becomes taxable to the entity that's leasing the parcel. So we've calculated what the implication of that might be from a financial perspective. It's relatively de minimis because it's a very small area, but it will result in somewhere around $340 a year. The real property cannot, under state law, be included in the pilot. So Select Energy will be taxed annually based on a methodology that Amy and I worked on, and Amy agreed was appropriate, fully defensible, and consistent with how she would approach a project like this anywhere else in the town. And that's the methodology that will be deployed each year. Select Energy will be assessed and invoiced, and they will pay that bill. All of these calculations for the pilot and the real property was considered as we worked hard to negotiate a change to the PPA rate. And the power purchase rate for every kilowatt hour that's generated by the project went from 14.05 cents down to 13.8 cents. So we got a slightly better pilot, and we got a slightly lower power purchase rate, which resulted in an economic pickup, if you will, of about $23,000 over the next 20 years. Now, I will tell you, so the total estimated 20-year benefit is about, inclusive of the power purchase rate and the pilot, not including the real property, is about $140,000. That's a very conservative number for two reasons. It is possible the building will also realize additional energy demand savings that have not been calculated in these numbers, because there's no guarantee by the way the utility calculates demand charges on a monthly basis. Clearly, the building demand will go down. Whether you'll be able to fully realize the financial benefit of that is all determined by the utility rate tariff. The other benefit that isn't built into any of these numbers, but built into the cost, is you're now getting a fully upgraded roof that's not going to need to be touched for the next 20 years, which is a huge benefit that has been sort of baked into this overall project cost. And then the third sort of conservative estimate I used in this overall analysis is the value of net metering. We're all going to gasp as we go into the winter months and we look at Eversource's supply rates. For those of you still being served by Eversource for supply, they're going to be crazy. The energy markets right now are very, very high. The good part about a crazy high energy price is it also raises the value of net metering. So I'm using a conservative net metering rate of about, I think it's about 14 cents. That may be the supply rate alone come this upcoming fall winter season. I can tell you in New Hampshire in January, Eversource's rate is 44 cents for just supply. It's crazy. It's crazy. So with that being said, the higher the supply rates, bad for all of us from a financial perspective, but from a net metering perspective, the value of those credits you're going to get. And as you know, we're exporting a lot of generation that's coming through the building and going to be applied on other town accounts. So that additional value will be borne not only at the site, but also at other town accounts as determined by Chris and his team as to how to allocate those accounts, those credits against other town accounts. I anticipate if the select board approves this, continues to support the project and approves this tonight, subject to the Board of Assessors doing sort of their final sign off on the modifications that are being made to the pilot agreement, I assume Select would start with the roofing project in July to get that going and then proceed pretty swiftly to get the asset installed in this, over the summer and into early fall. So with that, any questions?
No, thank you. I think you did a really great job for us negotiating a net positive result, albeit not huge, but it's net positive. So I appreciate all of the work you've done. As always, you've been a tremendous partner for us in the town of Dover with both of our solar projects. So we really appreciate your continued support of the community and helping us understand these programs better. So I don't have any additional questions, John. And you're on mute.
Oh, imagine that. So now we're even. Sorry about that, Beth. Thank you, Beth. Thanks very much. Beth, can you just clarify one thing for me in what you said? I think is critically important. You said 2.5% was defensible. Is it defensible because 2.5% is a historical, predictable compounding rate from an inflationary factor, or what?
It's really just tied to 2.5, Prop 2.5, that you could increase your revenue requirements by 2.5%. It's
right. So it's just 2.5% as a statutory 2.5%.
Right.
And it's not anything outside of the 2.5% rate, property tax rate.
Right, because we basically use the property tax rate as a proxy when really it's the relationship between your overall revenue requirements and your valuation, your property valuations that help set that tax rate. So rather than overcomplicate things, we take the tax rate and we escalate it 2.5% per year compounded.
Got it. Thank you. Just again, it's been great. All the work that you've done in this from last year and the year before. Thank you for everything.
You're
Bob?
welcome.
Bob, do you have any comments?
Beth, this was clear as crystal. And all that information simply won't affect my vote. So I thank you for your participation. Thank you for your patience with us and for all the work that you've done. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Robin, the only other thing I'd like to just point out, I'm sure Chris was about to do so, is there's a pilot agreement and there is an amendment to the power purchase agreement. Those have been fully vetted by town council, by Jess Wall, and Chris, and has not only signed off as to form, but she was actively involved in the negotiation to make sure that the town's interests were well preserved.
Right, and fortunately, Chris was able to get those to us to look at earlier this afternoon. So thank you for pointing that out. So I hope the two of you had an opportunity to look at those. It was in an email from, okay. So if there are no further questions, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to approve the pilot agreement and the contract amendment presented tonight, and authorize the town administrator to execute all related documents, all related documents on the board of that the Board of Assessors have approved said documents.
It's Robin. It's just pending the Board of Assessors approval.
Okay. So then pending the Board of Assessors final approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, John Jeffries. The training's going to come back, Robin. It's only.
I know. I did so well the first meeting.
First time.
You did, yes.
Right.
You have vacation on your mind. You got,
Right. Bob, you need to vote.
He voted.
You did? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we will move on to item 1.2, and it's to approve the.
Night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Unless you want to stay, she didn't. So then we'll move to
She was
item
out of it.
1.2, which is to approve the interfund borrowing for the Dover-Sherborne Regional School roof project. And once again, Chris will give us the information related to this.
Thanks, Robin. This past May, town meeting approved a capital appropriation for roof replacement at the Dover-Sherborne Regional School. And along with that appropriation was authorization for the town to borrow or issue debt to pay for that appropriation. The region is expecting the payment July 15th, which does not allow us sufficient time to actually go out and go through the process of issuing debt. There's also an outstanding question at this point, given what our assumed or anticipated capital expenses are for next year. There might be an opportunity for us to, if the capital budget committee and the warrant committee and the board of selectmen and then ultimately town meeting decide to move forward with those capital costs at next year's town meeting, there might be an opportunity for us to essentially combine all of those different projects into one debt issuance to lower the overall cost of borrowing for the town. So with that said, we're seeking the board's approval this evening to allow the treasurer collector to establish an interfund borrowing process for the Dover-Sherborne Regional Roof Project. All this does is it allows the town to essentially borrow against that future debt issuance for this fiscal year. And once we issue the debt later in the fiscal year, we will essentially pay those funds back. It's the same process that the board authorized last year when we had initial costs for the Carroll Community Center before we went out and actually issued debt.
Thank you, Chris. So one of the things Chris and I discussed a little bit was, given, we're in an environment where interest rates are increasing, does it make sense to potentially bond this now and then bond the remainder later in the fiscal year? But Chris reminded me that along with bonding also comes the legal costs for bonding, as well as fees associated with it. And we do know with some certainty that there will be additional projects that will most likely need to be bonded. So it probably still makes sense to fund this as proposed by Chris, and basically use free cash until such time that we bond some additional items. So Bob, do you have any comments, questions?
How much are we talking about?
I believe it's 800,000, right?
Approximately $800,000.
And are you proposing using free cash?
Nope, all it is essentially just we would
It's a
open
temporary.
up an account to pay for this project like we normally would. We would run a deficit on it. We would issue a bill. We would send the payment over to the region so that they could pay for the project. And then when we issue the debt, which we will have to do this fiscal year, the debt issuance, the monies received from that debt issuance just go back into that account to pay the town back its whole.
Thank you.
John?
No questions from me, Robin. And I'm sure there are others on the call that can weigh in on this. It's a simple process that using this like a bond anticipation note, the rate that we get.
That's exactly what it is.
The rate that we charge the school will be better than the rate we can make on the money just as it sits in the bank. It's a very good way to just utilize your own, and you're being essentially your own bank. The rate, the town's fiscal strength and the town's pristine balance sheet gives us the ability to do this. And when we go to funding, as you saw in the past with our $18 million, we will most likely come back at a much better rate than market rate in terms of our borrowing cost. So it's a very good thing to do, and it's really a prudent thing for the taxpayers from our fiduciary duty.
Right, and it's consistent with the way we've done things in the past. So I move to authorize an interfund borrowing to cover payments to the Dover-Sherborne Regional School District for an assessment related to the Dover-Sherborne School Roof Project of
Second.
approximately $800,000.
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Scintillating topic.
I beg your pardon?
Another scintillating
Yeah,
topic.
I mean, Chris gets all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So now we get to approve fiscal year 2022 year-end appropriation transfers.
Whoa.
Something we do every year at this June meeting.
Riveting.
A lot of housekeeping at the end of the fiscal year. So we're just seeking the board's approval, authorizing the town accountant to be able to transfer funds from the building maintenance department over to the building maintenance department Carroll Community Center budget line item, where the community center budget is in deficit by approximately $3,000. That's as a result of the increase in oil costs over the year, which exceeded what we budgeted for that line item last year. So in order for us to be able to transfer those funds, we need both Board of Selectmen approval and warrant committee approval. The warrant committee meets to take up this and any other remaining year-end transfers next week.
Okay. So I'm assuming there aren't any questions or comments about this, so I am going to boldly move to approve the appropriation transfers as presented.
Well, I'll think about it. I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
Okay, and now another housekeeping issue. So usually this time of year, the chairs of the town's boards, committees, and commissions request the Board of Selectmen to appoint or reappoint individuals to positions on respective board committees and commissions. Additionally, staff members whose terms have expired. So we also appoint staff members to some of these committees. Their terms have expired and will be appointed or reappointed to respective positions. So what I have here is a list, and I believe based upon the instructions in red that I need to read each of these. Is that correct, Chris?
You need to read the names off and
Okay, and the committee.
committees, and then you can just move it all at once. Yeah.
Okay, so the first committee is the Town Report Committee, and we're going to reappoint Mary Calamaris to a 3-year term effective July 2nd, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. On the Historical Commission, we're going to reappoint Jay Moore and Jean Hornsby to 3-year terms, also effective June 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. Council on Aging, we're going to reappoint Camille Johnson, Robert Cox, and the Reverend Peter DeSantos to 3-year terms, effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. We are also going to reappoint Cindy Holmes and Anne Marie Thompson to 1-year terms, effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. On the Board of Appeals, we're going to appoint Associate Member Nadir Ahmed and as a full-time 3-year member with an effective term starting July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. We're also going to reappoint Michael Donovan and appoint Nancy Green to 1-year terms effective July 1st, 2022 and June 30th, 2023. On the Recycling Committee, we're going to reappoint Janet Greenwood, Lisa Mullen, and Carol Lisbon. We're also going to appoint Desmond Brown, who will be a new member. Desmond has been a resident of Dover since 2008 and lived in Sherborne before living in Dover for 5 years. And we really thank him for stepping into to the recycling committee. All of these terms are 3-year terms, effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. At this time, I would also like to thank 2 very long-standing members of the recycling committee that are retiring, Chris Polson and Lindsay Nye. We really thank both of them for their leadership and their numerous hours of volunteerism, and really appreciate everything they've done for the town with respect to the recycling committee. For the tree warden and moth superintendent, lucky Kevin. We're going to appoint Kevin McCabe to fill the unexpired term of John Gilbert, who retired in May 2022. And again, thank you to John for his service. And this will be a 3-year term, also effective June. Oh, this one's different. It's effective June 24th. Is this correct? 2021 through June 30th, 2024?
It's unexpired.
That's right. Open Space Committee, we're going to appoint Amy Moot, Justine Kent Uratam, and Greg Cahoon to 2-year terms effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2024. On the Personnel Board, we're going to reappoint Sue Jeremiah to a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. And on the Conservation Committee, we're going to reappoint Sarah Monaco, Christy Violin, and appoint Anna Nagny to 3-year terms effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. And I would like to thank all of those who have volunteered to be reappointed and all of those who are new appointees. I hope you enjoy your service as much as we do. And with that, I move to appoint or reappoint all individuals to the town's boards, committees, commissions, and staff members to various positions as presented. Do I have a second?
Bob.
You're on mute, Bob.
Everybody's on mute. Second.
Yeah, we've all done it.
You don't have to read the names?
I did already.
Of everybody else, no.
So Robin, I don't know if you're taking it kind of in groups, individual groups. There are 2 more lists.
Oh, there are?
Yeah.
The town employees.
Continue on. So, I mean, you could
All
break
right.
it up if you want to do 3 motions, or you could continue on.
No, I will continue on. I didn't realize there were 3 lists. All right. The following individuals will be appointed for 1-year terms effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Mike Njeri, groundwater bylaw enforcement agent. Town engineer. Laurelyn Salee, animal control officer. Chris Dwelly, personnel rules omnibudsman, affirmative action officer. Kate O'Brien, personnel rules omnibudsman and Title IX non-discrimination coordinator. Bob Tosi, right to know coordinator. Nina Pickering Cook, town council from Anderson Krieger. Kathy LaPlante, town accountant. Gerald Lane, town treasurer and collector. Jeffrey Brooks, backup water operator. Chief Peter McGowan, chief of communication. Walter Avalone, inspector of building zoning enforcement officer, floating dock inspector. Felix Zemmel, backup building inspector. Kevin Malloy, wiring inspector. James T. Murphy, second alternative wiring inspector. Paul Angus, alternative wiring inspector. And police officers, Chief Peter McGowan, Officer Ryan Manise, Officer Todd Wilcox, Officer Joseph Wooland, Officer Charles Marcher, Officer David Chasen, Officer Nicole Branchard Heffernan, Officer Richard Calamore, Officer Matthew Lavery, Officer Donald Cahill, Officer Catherine Kalauchek, sorry, Catherine,
Very
Officer Patrick Murphy, Officer Edward McGuire, Officer Ryan Sullivan, Officer Jeffrey Lynch, Officer Jared Lehman, Officer Colin Young. On the Veteran Service Director, Paul Carew. And now I have appointments and reappointments to be filled by the Board of Selectmen. Capital Budget Committee. Do I nominate myself? Why not? Robin Hunter.
You're the chair, you can do it.
Current Board of Selectmen appointee, 1-year term, July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Warrant Committee, Robert Springett. Current Board of Selectmen liaison, 1-year term, July 1st, 2022 through June 20th, 2023. Open Space Committee, John Jeffries, current Board of Selectmen liaison, 1-year term from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. MBTA Advisory Board, John Jeffries. Metropolitan Area Planning Council, this is vacant. So it will be the town planner. It's an unexpired 3-year term and it expires on November 3rd, 2024. And John Jeffries is the alternate and his term expires on 10/30/2022. And the Norfolk County Advisory Board, that's vacant. Do we need to appoint somebody to that 3-year term?
So, Robin, I wanted to just use the opportunity, and we put that last just to kind of tee up for the board that it'd be a good opportunity for the board to kind of, start a recruitment process or see if there's anyone interested in serving on the Norfolk County Advisory Board. Presently, I serve in that capacity just to kind of, fill the seat, so to speak. But it really should be a Dover resident to be able to kind of best represent Dover's interests on Norfolk County. So we can work with we're happy to work on behalf of the board to put out announcements and, solicit interest from candidates. But we just wanted to tee up this evening for the board that, that really should be an appointment that's filled
by a Dover resident. So all Dover residents out there, if you ever wanted to try, dip your toe in the water of public service in the town of Dover, this may be a great opportunity for you. So we will post something on the website, and people can also call the Board of Selectmen's office if they're interested. Bob?
Chris, could you just give a very brief description of what people might be asked to do?
Sure. So the primary responsibility of the Norfolk County Advisory Board is to vote on and make recommendations on the county budget, which each member town of Norfolk County is assessed an appropriation. So Dover each year pays a certain amount of money to Norfolk County for their services that they provide, registry of deeds, county courts, county clerks, other county form of government types of services. And all those services obviously need to be funded, and the way that they're funded are by appropriation from all their member communities. So I think that's why it's really helpful to have a town resident be able to sit on that board and be able to vote on those decisions, which impact ultimately, service delivery to Dover and not just the other Norfolk County member towns.
Chris, what's the time commitment approximately?
Approximately, it's a night meeting that averages about 2 hours every other month.
So it is a good way to dip your toe into the waters for volunteering and get to understand town government.
Chris, are there any other vacancies?
That's it. The board has the list.
That's great.
So no.
Thank you. Robin, last thing, ready? Repeat after me. Kalaja.
Kalaja?
Check.
Check. Kalaja check. Catherine Kalaja check.
Katie.
All right. Okay, thank you, John. So with that, I move once again to appoint and reappoint all individuals to the town's board, committees, commissions, and staff members to various positions as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springer.
I, John Jeffries.
And again, I thank everybody for their willingness to continue to serve in town government and volunteer. So thank you all. And for all of those that have retired, I wish you the best of luck in your retirement and appreciate your past service. So the next item of business is basically a discussion on the community center building project and the next steps. So I believe at our last meeting, the building committee came before us and presented the project. And as part of the project's presentation, there was approximately $3 million of cost overruns. And the committee came to us and made a recommendation that we hold a special town meeting, I believe it was July 13th, and present the proposals to the town and have them vote. What we decided, and I believe there was a vote on this, is to basically not go to town meeting on July 13th, but rather to prepare to hold a town meeting in the fall. And that was with the understanding that there was a potential for costs to go up. None of us had a crystal ball, but we all felt very strongly that everybody in this community needed the opportunity to come to town meeting if they chose to do so and to vote on this project, just like everybody did initially to vote on the project. And we felt that in the fall, more citizens would be available. It would also give us an opportunity to present the issues to more individuals and hold open discussions in forums for citizens to participate. So I do appreciate the comments that we got today. This was a tough decision for all of us, but we felt very strongly that everybody in this community, this is an important project for the town of Dover. We all agreed that there was overwhelming support for it at the original town meeting. And we just felt strongly that at a future town meeting, as many citizens as possible should be able to vote on the issues at hand. So I believe this evening, what we're going to talk about is just the steps that need to be taken to move the project forward. Is that correct, Chris?
Just a general, conversation by the board, and whatever other, items or points that you might want to take up related to the topic.
So I just wanted to make sure that we had that recap. Apologies for my dog. So Bob, do you have anything to add?
Yes, do you want to limit me to one page or the 55-page essay I put together?
I would like you to provide us with some salient points. Tonight's a discussion. I expect us to have numerous discussions on how to move this project forward. I know I stated, and I believe both you and John stated at our last meeting, that we all support this project. We just want to be able to bring a comprehensive package to town meetings for citizens to vote on.
Yep, agreed. So I've heard from people. I'm sure you and John have also heard from people. I've listened to various and sundry points of view. And I have a couple of points I'd like to use to remind people of where we've been. And I have a couple of ideas about next steps that I'd like to explore. So one of my major concerns going back to 2019 was to avoid a rail trail type scenario where we had a win, lose, pack at the meeting, rally the troop kind of environment. And I find that we're sort of drifting that way, or I sense that we're drifting that way. And, I'm going to go back to a comment that we made back in 2019. It's about community. It's not win-lose. It's about community. We worked really hard over the past 2.5 years to have essentially a friction-free collaboration and consensus around the building. I find that that's starting to become a lot more partisan, and that should not happen. Relative to what's been presented is we need more money. I think I would like to see other options that have been developed and pursued, not just our costs have gone up, we need more money. Our costs have gone up, we need more money. I think that's really, sort of undesirable at best. I'll point out that the community center is a social amenity, not a critical town need. One of the emails that I got, the issue was, oh, it's a luxury. It is a luxury. There is no reason to act now and no reason to overpay. In turbulent times, you play defense, you don't play offense. I still can't get over the fact that this project started as a $10 million to $13 million effort. Paying $22 million for a $15 million building is financially irresponsible in my view. I want to remind people that we used $4 million of free cash to cushion the last $4 million bump in the project cost. And we did that to minimize the tax impact of the borrowing on residents. So we've been pretty active in supporting this particular project. And finally, as far as I'm concerned, we can continue to use Carroll for indoor activities and programs for the short term. It may require some limited spending, and that needs to be ascertained to make sure the building is reasonably in shape. Next steps, from where I sit, we have an approved budget, design, and funding of $19 million approved by the town at the town meeting. I think we need to live within that budget. I think one of the things that should be considered is putting the project on the shelf, deferring the project until conditions for moving forward turn favorable. I would suspend the building committee and appoint someone to monitor prices in the meantime. I would reboot the project when appropriate. I would not schedule a fall town meeting, and I would only do a meeting. I wouldn't support additional spending, and we really need to have a town meeting when we can present a favorable picture to the town. That's it.
Thank you for your comments, Bob. John, would you like to?
Very well said, Bob. Thank you. And I'm just gonna, Robin, I'm gonna try to just add two things without repeating something Bob said, and try to build on what Bob said, because I don't think anything has changed on our behalf, Robin, as far as the board is concerned with the decision we made 2 weeks ago. What I would like to just comment on the number of people that we have spoken to. As Bob said, we've heard from a lot of people. We've received open letters to the board. We've received emails to the board, and those will be available to anybody, to everyone. We're listening, and I think the important thing for everybody to take away from tonight is to go back to what Jim Rapetti has trademarked. We can disagree without being disagreeable. And in moments like this, oftentimes there's going to be disagreement, and we have a fiduciary duty to make sure our decision is consistent with the best interest financially for everyone in the town. So without belaboring that point, I just want to add two things. I've attended several graduation events these last 2 weeks since our last meeting, since we made the decision. And the overwhelming comments that I have gotten back during, the opportunities that we get to meet with our constituents is the vast majority have been extremely favorable towards our decision to not have a special town meeting in the summer, and to wait and to stay within our guidelines and the guidelines that the town meeting overwhelmingly supported. So just again, in keeping with Bob, the last thing I'd like to do, Robin, is just to clarify something, because Luciana made a very good point earlier. I'm sure there'll be other comments once we're done, but I just wanted to make sure. 2 weeks ago, I made a comment I commented upon the building committee, the Monday meeting. There was a Monday meeting, a Thursday meeting, and our meeting on a Friday. So the sequence of things was very fluid. And I just want to make sure that I commented that I was communicating in the chat with the building committee, and that Luciana had asked on the Monday for more time. The building committee then came back on the Thursday, and the building committee felt they had enough time. My comments on Friday should not have been construed to be a cause and effect on Friday of what Luciana said on Monday. I didn't think it was. Ford asked me to publicly say this because he felt that it might have been misconstrued. And if it was, I apologize. It was not my intent. And I hope that anybody listening on those 3 occasions got that. If they didn't, I just wanted to make that clear to everyone this evening. That's it for me. Thank you, Robin.
So, I think we have to keep in mind that the town of Dover overwhelmingly voted for this community center. And so I believe it is our responsibility to continue as best as we can moving forward with this project and trying to determine, bring it back to the citizens of Dover to vote on. It's not for us to make that decision. So I think we need to give the building committee direction. We need to understand what the next steps are, what needs to be done, what are some of the things we can look at to help and decrease these escalating costs. I mean, just today in the on Bloomberg, they were talking about, the cost of commodities coming down dramatically as the economy slowly starts to constrict. But none of us know, none of us have a crystal ball. So, this is an important and a very people are emotionally invested in this on both sides. And ultimately the town needs to decide if they want to spend 22 million or maybe it's 19 million. We don't know what the amount is. So I think at a minimum, we need to ask the building committee if they feel as though they can be impartial and just unemotionally tell us what the next steps are so that we understand what it takes to continue to bring this project forward, so that we ultimately make a decision as to when and if there's a special town meeting, when we feel as though all the questions have been answered.
I still worry about the partisanship.
About the what?
The partisan nature of win-lose, marshal your forces and charge off into the golden sunset. And again, I will come back. The town voted overwhelmingly for a $19 million project.
But you don't know that the town isn't going to vote overwhelmingly for a $22 million project. That's my point. Yes. So we need to be responsible and bring to the town whatever the costs are and let them decide.
Well, responsible means to engage and inform in a neutral process. And we do have fiduciary responsibility to look at the best interests of the community overall. People who are emotionally attached to an item can make a very poor decision. We've seen that happen time and time again. And so I'm advocating that we have a project, we have a budget, we have alternatives.
we don't, over the next couple of months, we'll see how things unfold in the economy. I mean, there is no, this is a nice to have, and there's no pressing immediate need to get the building started. So if it takes 3 months or 6 months, yes, it's later than people would have liked, and we have to make do with what we have right now. But I still strongly believe that we can't put this process on ice. So we need to provide guidance to the building committee with how we want them to proceed.
Robin, may I?
You may.
So thank you for that. There's two things that come out of this that I don't think have to be a conversation of if or it doesn't have to be. The decision is not binary. It's not we have to do this and we have to do this by a specific time because costs are going up. That may be true, and in fact, it may be not true. And so borrowing costs have gone up. However, I think I'm going to steal Dave Haviland's thunder on this. Borrowing cost could go down as the economy cools off and as you reach an equilibrium. Historically, what happens, bond prices have gone up. Bond prices can...
John, this is already financed.
I know.
The 19 million is already financed.
Totally. You are stealing my thunder. We already have a very good rate. We have a great rate, and it's because we have a pristine balance sheet. I don't want to put the great rate at risk by overpaying for what we absolutely know to be an inflated cost.
And John, the inflated costs are, at least part of the inflated costs, because we have a fixed price contract, right, for these guys?
Right.
And so if they're going to pump up as high as they can their costs to us, because they can't lose, right? If the bet is costs are going down, they come in and they have the contract bid at a very high price. They keep the difference. And and so this is very, very tricky. I don't understand why we have to have a town meeting. If we say we have a project, we have a budget, we are going to do that project at that budget when the market allows us to do that. There is absolutely no critical need to do anything with that project at this point in time. And I don't understand the rush to try it. Chris, is that right or wrong?
But Bob, we bonded, we have $19 million in money.
Yes.
Specifically earmarked, the town specifically earmarked this to build a community center.
Yes.
So it is our responsibility to figure out how to get this community center built.
For $19 million.
And if we can't, second time around, then the citizens of Dover need to decide if they want this community center at a higher price or not. And we need to present that to them. So, maybe a fall town meeting isn't the right time. Maybe it's a winter town meeting, but it is our responsibility to keep moving this project forward, to understand what the markets are and figure out what we can do. We do need to present the town with an option of, with today's prices, no matter what those prices are, what you can get for $19 million. Because that's a question that's going to be asked. What can you get for $19 million?
Right, but none of those options have been explored.
Right, so these are things we need to do. We talked about having a town meeting in the fall. Maybe we won't be ready, but we need to keep working on this so that we might be ready to have that town meeting. nobody knows what's going to happen to this economy in the next 3 months.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that if we wanted to set up sort of checkpoints, and then report back to the community about checkpoints and what we found, I think that's a sensible thing to do. I think, creating a situation where passion rules the day is a bad idea.
No, and there's too much emotion right now. People are angry at the decision we made. We tried to be methodical and logical and do what we thought was best for the town of Dover. And I still stand behind our decision. So what I suggest we do is that the Board of Selectmen have a meeting with the building committee and provide them with guidance as to what we need to see happen, because they need direction from us. If we're not going to give them direction, then we need to do it ourselves. Don't you agree?
I agree. I agree with that. The Board of Selectmen, I've said 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, a year ago, that the Board of Selectmen has the responsibility of this project. The Board of Selectmen a year ago was the one who encouraged the building committee to continue to move forward. When the cost went from 14 million to 18 million, it was the Board of Selectmen who emphatically told the building committee, carry on. And I encourage anyone and everyone to go back and look at and watch that meeting. And likewise, Robin, it's our responsibility when we're in the situation that you have both described to do what we've done. So I agree with both. And Robin, I'd just like to say that Justine has in the chat asked, why not?
And these are things that, need to be discussed at a building committee. I think all these options were looked at. Why not let the DPW do landscaping? They did look at private fundraising options. Just because you looked at things then doesn't mean you shouldn't look at things again. And this is, again, what we need to understand now is what we can do to reduce the costs of the community center. And maybe it's just time. Maybe it's waiting for the economy to settle down. And, maybe it's going to put the project a year behind schedule or 6 months behind schedule. But we owe it to the town to make sure that we can present at a town meeting options to the town of Dover so that the citizens can decide. So with that, I think the next step is for us to set up a meeting with the building committee and walk through the options and give them direction as to where they need to go. So do the two of you agree with that? Or?
Well, it is a necessary step, right?
Yes.
Right. So I will take that on myself with Chris, and we will try and find a time to schedule a meeting with the building committee. And maybe within the building committee, there needs to be a little bit of reorganization as well to help address this new challenge that has come up for them.
Mm-hmm. Robin,
I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
are you going to entertain questions from people in the chat this evening, or are you going to?
There's only one question in the chat, and I entertained that question. I don't see any other questions. Do you?
No.
Okay. I am willing to take comments, but I don't want to rehash the conversation that we had last week or 2 weeks ago, because the decision's been made. So I'm, if people have comments about ideas of how to move forward, I would entertain those. But I really believe the next step is having a meeting with the building committee and figuring out what the path forward is.
Janet Claypool has her hand. Janet Claypool.
Hang on before we go, right? Hang on, please.
Okay.
So the last point I want to make here is the process that we followed was one of engaging and informing the residents through multiple meetings, Q&As. was not promote and sell, right? The BOS throughout this entire process has been assiduously neutral. Right from get-go, we offered no opinion. We stuck to the engage and inform. And we cannot be in the promote and sell game.
Again, it's fine. I completely agree with you. It's finding the path forward so that we can bring options to the town and let them decide, that all the citizens of Dover, not just the three of us or the building committee, it's all the citizens of Dover.
Okay, look forward to the first step.
All right, so would anybody like to make a comment this evening? You can raise your hand. I don't see any hands raised.
Janet Claypool has her hand, I think.
Yes.
Nope, I'm sorry. My cursor, I apologize. Dave Haviland. Just
Cursor.
Robin, I apologize for that already. Dave Haviland had a comment on the chat.
Okay, sorry. All right. Right, so he agreed that it makes sense for us to have a meeting for a path forward. And, you know, his suggestion is that town meeting needs to look at two options. What would the building look like at 19 million? And then what would the current building look like with cost overruns? And I would agree with that. Thank you, Dave.
Maybe more than two.
Maybe. Let's get the meeting together and figure out what our options are. We all are up for a challenge. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next item, which is, again, just our upcoming agendas. And I would expect the Carroll Community Center path forward to continue to be a discussion on our agendas. Did the two of you take a look at the agenda? The agenda?
Yes. Yep.
You're looking at me like I forgot something else.
Are we at 1-6 for the selectmen updates?
Updates.
Oh, sorry.
You really need this vacation. God almighty.
Oh, I thought it was
You should have come
agendas.
sailing with me
Okay.
last week.
All right. So updates. One of the things that I had mentioned to Chris in a meeting that we had earlier this week was, as we all know, the Mass DEP has declared that Massachusetts, or the Southeast region, is in a drought. And I was asking Chris if we should put up some of the signs that the Board of Health had, or the Water Resource Committee had made, just to remind citizens that a drought has been declared. And Chris had reminded me that that is something we can do, but that the bylaw that was passed at town meeting is in the state of limbo because we need the Attorney General to approve the bylaw. So all we can do is just, again, provide information and communicate to the town facts. There's nothing more that we can do while our bylaw is pending approval.
So I have an ask. It turned out that I had to have my car serviced at Doug's Automotive. And I was talking with Doug about it, and he asked the status of the community center. As you know, he's been asked to vacate the Whiting Road. Given the delay, I think the board should consider extending his rental or lease agreement, because he told me that he's having a hard time finding alternate space. So maybe I could ask Chris if the board approves that he either sets up a month-to-month or a quarterly or a semi-annual extension of Doug's lease so that he has more time to locate space.
Bob, I would definitely be in favor of that because I also think that that building should be part of the discussion. I think that as we look at cost increase, the town is going to have cost increase to renovate that building as well. That building has to be brought up to code. It has no water. It lacks a lot of the basic things that we have to have a functioning building, even if it's just for storage. So our budget to renovate that building was over $100,000, and we all know that number has gone up significantly. So I think that I agree with you. We should continue to accept the rent. It's in the best interest of the town to do that from a financial standpoint, and we should have that building and at that asset as part of a discussion in the overall cost of the community center project.
Well, I would support, having Chris just enter into a month-to-month lease with Dover Automotive. So Chris, do you need an official vote?
Well, I think I got a general sense here of the board's wish. What I'd like to do just to kind of set expectations is I'd like an opportunity to come back to you, maybe your next meeting with some findings. I'd like to have a conversation first with Carl Warnick, and I'd like to also kind of lay out some details. There's a lot of things in flux now with the community center and with our COA and park and recreation departments and their equipment and storage and programs. And I'd just like to be able to kind of put all the details related to that and the impact that one way or the other that a continued lease, private lease over at 5 Whiting Road would have. So I'll just, package all that up, and I'll also put together a draft lease or license for the board as well and present that to you at an upcoming meeting altogether.
Right, and you make a really good point, because as part of these discussions on how to move forward with the options for the community center and when to have town meeting, we need to take into account Park and Rec's programs and ability to run programs in the COA as well.
Yeah, and in terms of storage, we have a 40,000 square foot building currently empty.
Correct.
Okay. So Chris, will you let Doug know that this is being considered? Or Carl?
If Doug reaches out to me, I can let Doug know that it's been brought up this evening. Yep.
Great, that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
And John, do you have any updates?
Yes, we have an update with regards to Hale. Chris, would you like to cover that just at this point? Do you feel it's in terms of the detail, and is it more appropriate to wait to hear back from the Hale board before we go into the detail of it?
Yeah, I don't think, at this point, based on the board's instructions kind of to our subgroup months ago about putting together a package agreement that could be presented to the board, that we're there to kind of share the nitty-gritty details of the agreement. Though I would, at your prompt, John, I would say that we have those nitty-gritty details all set and packaged together. There's just what I would say kind of 2 clarifying questions that our sub-negotiating team has for the Hale group that we're waiting to get answered before we package all that up and then get that to the board for your review and then discussion on next steps moving forward.
Robin and Bob, the only thing I would add to that is there's been a lot of nit in the gritty. There's a lot, the devil is in the detail, and you gotta really flush out the devil. It's a big ask, and we want it to be very favorable for the town of Dover. So we're making progress. And a big thanks to Open Space and all of the interactions with all the other committees that we've really brought in under this tent.
Hey, Robin, Justine had a question. Do you want to read it?
Right, so it was actually something that Chris and I had talked about, and we were going to add it to a future agenda. It's about, just having another conversation with Aquarian, understanding. I said to Chris it would be interesting to see what their water consumption is this year versus last year, because from my anecdotally, I work really early in the morning, and I will tell you there are very few irrigation systems that are running.
Don't walk down Francis Street.
Even down Francis Street, they're fewer than they used to be. So it would be interesting to see what they are seeing as a resident that gets my water from Aquarian. They did send out a card telling residents what they should be doing to conserve water. So, they seem to be more proactive, and their signs have definitely gotten attention of the residents in their water district, or that utilize their water. So it will be interesting to see, just to get an update for them on what they're seeing with respect to consumption, and also just some of the remediation that they're doing on the system.
Yeah, the projects, right? There's projects going on. So Chris, has there been any recent communications between the board and Aquarian?
The communications that have occurred primarily in the past 2 months have been between the staff who were working with the board on the water restriction bylaw to ensure that the town's plan processes synced up with Aquarian's processes and vice versa. So, things about how do you respond to a complaint and how do you notify an individual and educate them. So just a lot of kind of like the logistical and operational discussions. As it relates to the broader remediation efforts that Aquarian highlighted for the board last year, there have been light conversations regarding that they continue to make progress, but as Robin mentioned a bit ago, I think it makes sense to have them come back before the board to give a kind of broader, more in-depth update to the board and the community.
Great, thank you.
Like I certainly haven't heard complaints about discoloration for
No,
a
thank
few
goodness.
months. Right. So then, if there's nothing else that you'd like added to the agendas, we can then move to the town administrator's update. You may have given them all, Chris.
The only question I have is, when are we going to set up planning meetings? Are you guys working on that?
So we've got 2 dropped into the look ahead agendas right now. We can add additional planning meetings, or we can supplement what's on the books right now. Or I know that the board, it's gone back and forth. Sometimes it's been during a regular meeting, other times it's been during a special workshop meeting. So I really, I guess what I'm saying is we propose some dates for the board, and let me know if you'd want that to be changed in any way.
Well, I would opt for a separate planning meeting. That's worked pretty well in the past 3 years, I guess it is, or 4 years, rather than tacked on to a regular meeting. Just my view.
I agree.
And I think last year we just had one planning meeting, so we could do that again, and we could do it during regular business hours, Chris. So.
Okay, we'll send out some dates and times
Okay.
tomorrow to start that process.
That sounds great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So Chris, do you have updates you want to share?
I got 2 or 3 quick updates, but also one request for the board. This is a last minute and unforeseen agenda item that has been requested by the board from Minuteman Vocational School. The vocational school would like to use a portion of their excess and deficiency, which is the equivalent of schools' free cash, to increase the overall Minuteman school budget for next fiscal year. This requires a vote by the member municipalities. They're looking for this vote to occur by June 29th. And so given that we're at the 23rd, so I wanted to bring this up to the board this evening. Again, we just received this this morning from the vocational school. I would emphasize that the vote and the materials that I forwarded over to you would not increase the town's assessment of what we've been billed and what our appropriation is for FY23. It just allows the school to use their free cash to essentially what sounds like pay for a special project that they have planned for capital.
And that they potentially would have asked for an increase in the assessment to do, right?
If otherwise, yeah, not
Right.
requested, correct.
Right.
Would you like a separate motion for that, Chris?
Yes, I would appreciate a motion, and if I can just read it to you, and then, you know, a board member could read it back to me.
That requires we pay attention.
That's a big ask, Chris. I had to kick John 3 times already.
That's not true.
So it looks to the effect of the motion would be, I move to positively endorse the Minuteman Regional Vocational Technical School Committee to appropriate $500,000 from certified excess and deficiency to be transferred to the Capital Stabilization Fund. And that's it.
I will give you $100 if you can repeat what you just said.
So why don't we just say it as he said?
I wrote
I will
a
second that motion to move to endorse the Minuteman Regional School Committee to transfer $500,000 from their E&D fund to their capital stabilization fund for a one-time special capital project.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Sprant.
Hi, John Jeffries.
Robin, that was really well done. Now you're starting to cook.
You left out technical and endorse. You left out.
Hey, I got the gist of it.
You got the gist.
You were writing as fast as I was, and I got more than that. Thank you for that.
Chris, will that cover it? Did somehow we manage to get it?
Oh, it was perfect. Perfect.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that. Thanks, and we'll get that correspondence back over to Minuteman tomorrow, and we'll also notify our committee rep who is Ford. And just for the board, a couple of personnel things that I just wanted to quickly mention for you. First, I wanted to recognize Kevin McCabe for an award that he won last week as he won the Young Leader Award in Public Works by the New England chapter of American Public Works Association. It's the professional organization that professional public works directors and public works professionals are involved in. So it's it's certainly quite an honor for him. So we're happy to see him get that, and it's also great for us, to have have an individual like Kevin working in our organization and assisting the community to receive that award. So I just wanted to publicly be able to share that with the board and also recognize him for receiving that award. On a I guess a sadder note, first I just want to share with the board, I think as everyone already knows, that Cheryl Abdullah, our library director, will be leaving us at the end of the month. The library trustees, Cheryl's done a fantastic job with the library and with the community for, I think it's 13 years or so. So it'll be sad to see her go, but she's headed off to retirement. The library trustees put together a really robust and wonderful recruitment process for a replacement, and they've hired and selected Bethany Clem, who comes to Dover from Bedford. She's got a lot of great experience, and think she'll be had an opportunity to meet with her, and think she'll be a great fit, and will continue a lot of the great things that Cheryl was able to do for the library and for the town. And then lastly, sad to say that our friend and familiar face on these Thursday night evening meetings, Dave Sullivan, our municipal project manager, will be leaving us at the end of the month as well, to take a job in his hometown of Sandwich. Dave has been, without question, instrumental in moving a lot of the board's modernization efforts forward. He's just been an all-around great guy and great resource. And, it's sad to lose him, but it's a great opportunity for him. And just want to wish him well and recognize him publicly for all the great work that he's done and he's brought to the organization.
And Chris, I would also like to echo your remarks. Thank Cheryl. She really moved the Dover Library from a sleepy town library to something that is really more of a 21st century library. She embraced technology and somehow figured out how to mix books with technology and turn the library into somewhat of a community center for the entire community. So thank you to her for everything she did. And Dave, you've only been here 2 years, but you've been an instrumental piece of our modernization efforts. It's truly been an absolute pleasure working with you. Appreciate everything you've done for the town. You've just been an absolute joy to work with, and we're going to miss you, but wish you the best of luck in your new position, and the town of Sandwich is really lucky to have you. So thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you very much.
So the town's loss is tremendous, but I'm going to lose a coffee buddy who shows up at Blue Moon on the random days, and we sort of plot strategy. So we happened to do that this morning. He shows up, and I said, "Please come over here." I didn't even say please.
What time were you there? Because I was there too.
I was there. It was like 8 o'clock or something. You were there.
I
like
missed you
noon.
guys. I was there at 7.
So for both people, major contributions to the town. Similar, I guess, in terms of helping move the town in a modern direction. I know both will be missed. The only thing about Dave and coffee, he never buys. That's the only thing.
Dave, good for you. Bob, way too much money.
Bob, don't you know you're not supposed to accept gifts? He needs remedial training.
Oh, well, I don't get it. So it's not a problem. So Dave, good luck. I know the commute is much lower and other benefits. Knock the ball out of the park down there, and same to Cheryl. Cheryl's going to retirement. She can come work on the boat.
Dave, we determined that you're going to save $32,000 in gas. Just
Probably close.
And thank you. It was just a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy for you and your family and everything that you're going to be able to do, and you're just going to be great for your town, and you just got a great future, and we're really happy to have you. So thank you for all you did.
Thank you very much.
So that's all I have in terms of moving forward. While Dave wraps up his time in Dover, we've posted for his position to begin the recruitment process to bring somebody on board, and we're putting the pieces in place to ensure a smooth transition and continuity of existing projects so that things continue on without a hiccup. And we're also fortunate that we have Mark with us, who's been with us now for a little over a month as our IT support specialist to just make sure that the lights are on and the Zoom meetings are working.
The little things we need to do. Robin, before we go into the consent agenda, can I just make one other observation that the Dover Police Association held their first annual charitable golf tournament, and my team, although we were absolutely the best foursome, we did not come in first. We did not come in last. We were a very respectable fourth place finish. It was a blast.
4 out of 4, John?
Very diplomatic, that four.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to be very polite, and we did it out of an abundance of respect for the others. We came in fourth, just out of the money. So we just congratulations to Joe Willard and to Sergeant Willard and to all of Detective Lavery, all the people who put it on. It was a really good turnout. So there were 14 foursomes, and it was just a lot of fun. Really perfect day. They raised money for great causes that they are the things that they do that we never see. So it's a great thing, and hopefully we do it next year. Next year, Bob gets a foursome and Robin comes in place. So
I am really good at the walking part of golf.
How are you at finding balls in the woods, Robin? That's the critical skill.
Right. I would be good at that. So I'm going to move, thank you, to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, we will approve the contract between the town administrator, Chris Dwelly, and the town of Dover. We will approve the wireless communication lease between Verizon and Cellco Partnership, DBA Verizon. We're going to ratify the bargaining agreement between the town of Dover and Dover Laborers Local 1116. We will approve one-day special liquor licenses for July 2nd and 16th. And we will approve the March 17th open session meeting minutes. So I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
Okay, and then I am going to make a motion to adjourn this meeting to go into executive session, not to return to open session. And for that, I will need a roll call vote. So I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right, so we have another line to call into, so we should do that in a few minutes.
5 minutes, 5-minute break.
5-minute break.
Thank
Okay.
you, everyone.